Advisor Media to the President and Chairman of the Presidential Communications Team, Mr. Femi Adesina, OON. Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Publicity, Malam Garba Shehu. All other Senior Special Assistants. Special Assistants, Personal Assistants to the President, and all members of the Presidential Communications Team here present. May I also use this opportunity to recognize the following members accompanying the Honourable Minister for this briefing today. DG NEMA, that's Director General, National Emergency Management Agency, Mustafa Habib Ahmed. Permit me to also recognize other heads of agencies and also other directors accompanying the Honourable Minister for this briefing today. And of course, gentlemen of the press, good morning. We humbly welcome you all to the 56th session of the State House briefing organized by the Presidential Communications Team. You may recall that at the 29th session of this briefing held on 17 February 2022, we had the honor of hosting the Honourable Minister and her team on this platform. And her presentation at that session was focused on the updates on the socioeconomic milestones and report card of the humanitarian efforts being implemented in the Northeast and other regions of Nigeria being executed by the ministry. Now, in continuation of the efforts of the Presidential Communications Team to spotlight some of the key strides being made by the President Muhammad Buhari-led administration to provide emergency support and critical intervention as a fallout to the recent floods that has affected various regions in Nigeria, the State House briefing for today, Thursday, 3rd November 2022, will focus on the efforts being in place by the federal government through the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development and its agencies, especially NEMA, in the provision of palliatives and emergency assistance to Nigerians that have been impacted by the recent floods that have affected various regions of the country. This session will be anchored by the Honourable Minister, who would also introduce the DG NEMA to also make a presentation. We're sure that justice will be done to this topic today, and as much as possible, we'll be able to calm frayed nerves as a result of the issue of the floods. The Honourable Minister and also the presentation that we're going to listen to today will last for about 20 to 30 minutes, after which we will take questions from the press solely based on this presentation and issues pertaining to the ministry and other humanitarian efforts being carried out by the Honourable Minister. At this juncture, it is my honor to invite the Honourable Minister to the podium for her introduction and also for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Dr. Femi Adesina, OON. The Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Malam Garba Shehu, other Senior Special Assistants, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and esteemed members of the press, and of course, my team. You may recall that to the onset of the rainy season, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, has presented its seasonal climate prediction for 2022 to the public on 17th of February 2022 in an event that was given maximum coverage by the press. According to the seasonal climate prediction, the 2022 annual rainfall pattern is expected to be normal to above normal throughout Nigeria. In the same vein, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, NISA, in its 2022 annual flood outlook, has also forecasted flood situation for different parts of the country. The flood outlook highlighted that 233 local government areas in 32 states and the FCT are within highly probable flood risk areas, while 212 local government areas in 35 states of the Federation are within the moderately probable flood risk areas. Furthermore, the annual flood outlook predicted coastal flooding in Rivers, Delta, Lagos, and Bayelsa states due to rise in sea level and tidal surge, and urban flooding in some locations such as Lagos, Abeokuta, Osogbo, Ibadan, Benin City, Asaba, Warri, Onitsha, Port Harcourt, Kaduna, Sokoto, Yola, Abakaliki, Birnin Kebbi, Makurdi, and other major cities as a result of poor drainage system management. As part of its annual flood disaster preparedness, the National Emergency Management Agency convened a meeting of all stakeholders between 26th to 27th of April this year to critically analyze the 2022 annual climate prediction and the annual flood outlook and come up with the disaster management implication of the two predictions. At the end of the two-day meeting, the group of experts came up with the 2022 disaster early warning messages, highlighting the implications and recommendations across climate-sensitive socio-economic sectors, including water resources and infrastructure, agriculture and food security, health, transport, and infrastructure. Letters of the flood early warning messages produced were sent to all the state governors, the FCT minister, and members of the National Assembly, as well as respective recommendations to mitigate impacts of the anticipated outcomes and avert loss of lives, means of livelihoods, public and critical national assets, and environmental dislocation. The ministry, through the National Emergency Management Agency, produced flood vulnerability mappings for the whole country based on the 2022 AFO released by NISA, highlighting all communities at risk, and shared the documents with our partners. Throughout the period, the ministry has worked closely with state governments and all relevant partners to achieve its mandates for effective and efficient disaster management in Nigeria. In monitoring the level of preparedness of state governments and other partners, the ministry, through NEMA, has constantly evaluated the plans they are putting in place in response to the recommendations contained in the early warning messages. In furtherance to its mandate of disaster risk, with far-reaching recommendations was issued to the public. This is to say that the government was fully on top of the situation and we were prepared. Subsequently, flood early warning jingles were broadcasted through selected radio and TV stations in both English and local languages to sensitize the public on flood disaster preparedness, mitigation, and response. The current disaster outlook indicates that so far, the flood has wreaked havoc in 36 states of the Federation and the FCT. 612 persons were reported dead, 3,219,780 persons were affected, 1,427,370 persons were displaced, and 2,776 others are injured. A total of 181,600 houses are partially damaged, while 123,807 houses are totally damaged. 176,852 hectares of farmland are partially damaged, while 392,300 hectares of farmlands are totally destroyed. There is a widespread environmental dislocation as a result of this flood. All through the peak of the flood season, I have personally led NEMA emergency response teams to some of the disaster hotspots nationwide to conduct damage and loss assessments in collaboration with state emergency management agencies. The ministry through NEMA has deployed its emergency response assets, including mobile water purification equipment, search and rescue boats, and mobile intensive care units, ambulances, to conduct life-saving first aid and support to vulnerable populations. So far, NEMA has reached out to and responded to over 1,427,370 displaced persons in 28 states and the FCT. The provision of food and non-food items for immediate relief, and building materials to facilitate rehabilitation of the impacted population is still ongoing. These states that we have reached are Abia, Adamawa, Anambra, Bayelsa, Ekiti, Enugu, Ebonyi, Imo, Jigawa, Kaduna, Kano, Kwara, Lagos, Nasarawa, Niger, Ogun, Ondo, Oyo, Rivers, Sokoto, Taraba, Yobe, Oshun, Ekiti, Edo, Delta, Bauchi, and the Federal Capital Territory. The remaining 6 states comprising of Akwa Ibom, Cross Rivers, Kwara, Zamfara, Katsina, Kebbi, Borno, and Gombe are still ongoing. Our efforts are already on ground. Our officers are on ground in Gombe, Katsina, Zamfara, and Borno to flag off the distribution today. In furtherance of the federal government intervention to vulnerable population, His Excellency President Muhammad Buhari has approved the release of 12,000 metric tons of grains comprising of sorghum, millet, and gari from the National Strategic Reserve to NEMA for distribution to 36 states and the FCT. Most of the states have already received their consignment of the grains. The Presidential Committee on Flood Relief and Rehabilitation under the chairmanship of Alhaji Aliko Dangote has donated assorted foodstuff worth 1.5 billion naira to NEMA for distribution to all the states of the Federation. And NEMA has already provided warehouse facilities in the 6 geopolitical zones of the Federation to receive the items. A plan has also been put in place by NEMA to transport and hand over the relief materials to the state government and the FCT authority. The Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and Social Development is coordinating a country-wide support by World Bank to undertake a comprehensive impact analysis and post-disaster needs assessment similar to what had obtained after the 2012 flood. This will enable government to appreciate the extent of damage caused by the flood, including the economic cost implication on housing, infrastructure, agriculture, and other sectors. NEMA has also requested support from the United Nations in respect of assistance from the Central Emergency Relief Funds. UN OCHA has confirmed that some UN agencies have accessed the funds and will soon intervene across sectors. Going forward, the ministry, through NEMA and through the zonal offices, territorial and operation offices nationwide, will be conducting a damage and loss assessment on farmlands, fisheries, poultry facilities, and livestock to enable effective planning for emergency agricultural intervention as the flood waters recede to support farmers, our farmers, fishery owners, and pastoralists to get back to work and safeguard the heavily impacted national food security. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, while we have done everything possible to ensure early response to population in need from the inception of the flood seasons, there's no doubt that a lot of challenges have been encountered during the operation. Some of the challenges include the slow movement of both human and material assets, in addition to relief items due to flooded and washed away roads, bridges, and issues of safety and security in some areas. In some instances, our partners in the Nigerian Air Force and military disaster response units have supported us with their assets to conduct airdrop of relief materials in cut-away locations. I want to use this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to His Excellency President Muhammad Buhari and all other stakeholders and our esteemed partners, especially members of the press, for supporting us to deliver this life-saving support to affected persons from the onset of the rainy season. I will, on this note, now ask for the presentation. I'm sure it has been showing the visuals of our interventions, and I will welcome any questions or observations. I thank you very much for your attention. God bless you all.
So I've just received the information. We'll just have the question and answer session, but the presentation will be shared to all the press after we finish our session today. James. As is our tradition, we'll take the first set of 4 questions. I'll start from the back today. Adesua, Kode, Timothy, and Yemi. Adesua.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Honourable Minister. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the concise presentation. First, I'd like to ask you, my name is Sadiya from Arise News. We've seen disaster response in this country, and the COVID-19 pandemic is a quick reminder of how materials were shared but ended up in warehouses and not with the people. What measures do you have in place to ensure that these materials you're distributing get to the people that need them? Also, we've been hearing a lot of blame game going on. You spent the major part of your presentation this morning talking about how government was prepared in several ways. However, we find ourselves here. So what went wrong? Are you absolving the federal government of any blames?
Good morning, Honourable Minister. My name is Umar Aliu from Code Radio International. My question is anchored around her question 2. It is a good reminder during COVID when we saw many Nigerians going rampaging, looting warehouses. Before then, when your ministry was saying they've provided this and that, people were skeptical about it. But when the rampaging was going on, then you were vindicated. So during the distribution of all these materials, I am a witness. In some cases, a whole household will be given just 1 mudu of millet. Just 1 mudu. So what have you done to make sure that what you've dished out has gotten to the desired people accordingly? Thank you.
Morning, Honourable Minister. My name is Timothy Choji. I report for Voice of Nigeria. I would like you to kindly highlight some of the challenges you face in carrying out this task of extending relief to people affected by flood. Thank you.
Hello. Good morning, Honourable Minister. My name is Yemi Atebayo from AIT. I just have only one quick question for you. In addressing this flood issue, we understand that the federal government is doing its own part, while the state government, those are the subnationals, are also doing part. I want to find out, because in addressing this issue, we're supposed to have one national response in addressing the flood issue, but we understand that the states are doing something else, and the federal government is also doing something else. So I want to find out what's your collaboration with the states in addressing this issue. Thank you very much.
It's on? Okay, thank you very much. Adeshwa from Arise. You asked how are these relief items being distributed? Well, if anything, the COVID has taught us a lesson, and we have learned from that. This time around, we're engaging everybody that is a stakeholder in a state. Before going for the intervention, we have written letters to different groups, the state government to start with, faith-based organizations, NGOs and CSOs, and community leaders that we're coming to this state with so items to be distributed to so number of beneficiaries. And I think so far, so good. This model is working, and I'm sure we will not have such kind of issues that we had during COVID, because now we are using a whole of government and whole of society approach to take our interventions. And the other issue is if we are trying to absolve the federal government, well, we have stated the facts. we have done what we're supposed to do as a government at the federal level. But these issues does not just begin or concerns the federal government. There are other authorities, individuals as well, that they have to take precautionary measures. And we have done that. We have done a lot of sensitization. As we all know, we cannot stop floods or some kind of natural disasters, but how to mitigate such disasters is what is important, and we have done quite much in this regard. The other issue by Aliyu, I don't know about Emudu being distributed, honestly, and because we distribute in sacks, you know, not in Mudus. So I don't know, I'm sure you have seen that when we take these interventions across the country, is in bags of, you know, 25 kg minimum. That is what we take. No, not from our own end, honestly, not from this end. We don't. It's going to be very cumbersome anyway. How do you go and start sharing Moody's? The numbers are quite huge. And the other issue raised by VOA, the challenges I have stated mostly is due to the inaccessibility of the areas that we're supposed to take these interventions to us at prompt response, but because of the roads that are inaccessible, we experience some delays before these items get there, and then the victims begin to wonder if we are coming at all. This is really the main challenge, and that is also beyond us. But we are trying our best. As I mentioned in my statement, we have engaged the services of other experts, the military and Air Force, to see how they can support us to airdrop some of these food items to these inaccessible areas, and they have been supporting very well. And the other issue raised by Yomi on collaboration, of course, we have to collaborate with the states. I've mentioned we're involving every stakeholder in this, and then the states also have to do something. So it's not as if we are not collaborating. They are supposed to be the first responders anyway, because once these disasters happen, it's within their states, and they have state emergency management agencies and local government emergency management agencies that will have to move in immediately to support, together with our team, because in most of these states, in almost all the states across the country, we have NEMA officers on ground that work together. So, and everyone knows what to do in this regard. Thank you very much.
My name is Felix Onwa. I write for Reuters, World News Agency. Felix Onwa. Honourable Minister, I would like to know, I'd like to know when the government will be launching a humanitarian appeal to deal with the impacts of this flood, and how much do you think the government is looking at that will be enough to take off the impacts? Thank you.
Yeah, Honourable Minister, my name is John Bosco Abakuru. I write for Vanguard. You've told us that 36 states we have an FCT, we are affected in this flood disaster. We know Mr. President appoints his aides or ministers to represent him whenever he's not there. I want to find out, because some state governments have said the federal government has not shown much concern, especially Benue State government. How many states have you visited to show concern that the federal government is worried over what has happened? And you mentioned the issue of inadequate flood control infrastructure. Inadequate flood control infrastructure. Who is supposed to put these infrastructures in place? What efforts do you think will put in place to ensure that these infrastructures are put in place to avert any other form of catastrophe this thing can bring going forward? Thank you.
Okay, good morning. Gloria Umezweke from Channels. Just to build on what my colleague said. So there are allegations of looting and diversion of these materials. And we don't know exactly what monitoring team is in place to really check this. Otherwise, we end up with moodoos, like he was trying to say. And then I know the US government contributed about $1 million. How much have you really expended on this interventionist program? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ruth. I write for Bloomberg, and I wanted to find out, given the magnitude of the farmlands that were destroyed, Ruth, my name is Ruth. I write for Bloomberg. So my question is, given the magnitude of the farmlands that have been destroyed, how do you see this affecting food production or food availability next year? And this is to this President's spokesperson or anybody that can answer this question. Would the government planning to relax food imports, the laws, to relax food imports so that to meet with these potential impacts that the flooding has caused on food production? Thank you.
Question by Felix, and when will government be launching a humanitarian appeal fund? Honestly, I'm not aware there's such fund, appeal fund coming. We have not requested for that. Government is doing everything possible now. I don't know, maybe somewhere in the future, but for now, there's no such appeal fund in the pipeline. On the issue raised by Vanguard, state governments are complaining that we are not there on the spot. Is that the question? We have to show our presence. I've mentioned that we have officers in all the states, and they are supporting the state officials to give support to these victims. Where it is possible for us to visit, we have visited. But the most important thing is the response, which we have given a very quick response to the states affected, Benue inclusive. Then the other issue raised on the infrastructure, yes, I think the relevant ministries are working on this. We have a plan in place, a flood emergency or preparedness plan is in place, and every MDA has a role to play in this. And we have started operationalizing that plan. That plan has just been approved by the Federal Executive Council in September this year. Gloria, allegations of looting, we have not received any official complaint on this, but I assure you that we have engaged the services of security agencies to support us secure our warehouses in the states. And when we're doing even the distributions, they are present there. I've not received any official complaint on looting, but we'll go back and ask questions. Sorry? Huh? I'm not aware of any diversion. It's not even possible now that we're engaging everybody. Everybody is aware of what is coming to that state before it even arrives. So it will be very difficult for any diversion. The other issue on the US ambassador, I saw her also. I don't know where that money was taken to. It has not come to my ministry, honestly, but it is important to know that some of these partners, they rather do things themselves. We have not received $1 as a ministry from any organization. What the UN agencies do, they sometimes ask us our area of concern, and we give them, and they go themselves and do these interventions. So I'm not aware of this because it has not come to me officially, or even to NEMA, I don't know. So, well, we don't know. Routes on the farmland destroyed. As a government, we have just told you that we have been given 12,000 metric tons of grains. That is in millions, or about 400 trucks, 400 trailers. Even the logistics of deploying these items is in hundreds of millions. And then our own budgetary allocation is there. Intervention to NEMA is there, Mr. President. We must appreciate him. He has given us support in this regard. So it is in millions of naira. The other issue on this farmland destroyed, yes, I'm sure you may recall that we have a presidential committee on food security. Now we are doing the assessment of those farmlands that are going to be, that are destroyed, and we submit our report to the Food Security Council, which is being chaired by His Excellency Mr. President, and the Vice Chair is His Excellency the Governor of Kebbi State. So once that is done, we'll know the next step to take, but definitely farmers will be compensated. Those that lost their means of livelihoods will also be compensated accordingly. Thank you very much. And that is why we have the Food Security Council, and I just mentioned that we're doing the assessments and something is going to be done. Definitely, once we submit our report, farmers will be compensated. There's going to be dry season farming, definitely, to cushion this effect. With the intervention that we hope is coming very soon the dry season farming is going to cushion that effect. I'm very optimistic about that. We don't hope for food shortage, Gloria. We don't hope for that.
Okay, sorry, do we have online questions? We don't have online. Okay, so take 6 now, and then that will be last.
That's all.
Honourable Minister, my name is Cyril Okonkwo. I work for Voice of Nigeria. Despite Voice of Nigeria, Cyril Okonkwo, despite predictions by NIMET and what we saw in Pakistan, we lost 612 Nigerians to this year's flood. They didn't die necessarily because of hunger. Some of them drowned because they didn't have emergency shelter where they could go to when they were asked to move. Beyond the distribution of reliefs, what is being done about emergency shelter in places where that are flood prone in this country, so that when people are asked to move, they have a place to go and seek shelter?
All right, thank you. Thank you. My name is Tony Ailemen. I write for Business Day. I would like to know your relief materials, 12,000 metric tons, and whatever you have been able to put in place so far. Do you see it as being sufficient to go to, to provide actual relief for these people? And if it is not, how much does the federal government really need to provide succor for these people who have been affected by this flooding? If you see the extent of this flooding, if you've been there, you know that even right now as we speak, some people have not still been able to enter into their homes. Then how are you going to be able to identify the farmers and those who have lost their lives? Are you going to be able to gather these statistics and ensure that those whom you are giving compensation to are actually the people that will get this compensation? This is what Nigerians are actually interested in. Thank you.
Good morning, all. My name is Aon Dunainga from Silverbird Television. So my question is along the same trajectory with my colleagues. Given the loss of lives, considering the loss of lives, I'm thinking, would you want to consider, or would you consider enforcing evacuation probably next year when probably such projections are made, just in order to avoid loss of lives? Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Leon Usigbe is my name. of the Nigerian Tribune. Talking about evacuation, the Honourable Minister, before the floods actually happened, there were a lot of talks of, a lot of warnings given out. People were requested or required to leave their environment, their homes, just to leave the floodplains. But elsewhere, what we know is that when there are threats of floods, tornadoes, or anything, government usually evacuate people to, safer places, schools, stadium. Why are you not able to do that in this country, madam? Still on the flood, an elder statesman, Chief Clark, a few days ago said the humanitarian minister is not humane in terms of, providing succor for flood victims, especially in the South-South. How do you respond to that? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Muhyiddin Olaneyi. I write for Daily Trust newspaper. Just yesterday, former President Goodluck Jonathan said almost everybody in Bayelsa is internally displaced. He now said he has discussed the predicament of the people of the state with President Muhammadu Buhari, Vice President Yemin Osinbajo, and he expressed hope that aid will come to their way. What kind of assistance is the federal government giving to Bayelsa State with the intervention of former president?
My question. Thank you. Suriel, let me use this opportunity to extend our heartfelt condolences to the families of those who lost their lives. Lives have been lost, very unfortunate. There were early warnings and hence early action by all, the nationals, subnationals, and even individuals that were prone to this disaster. We have erected temporary shelters, about 48 of them, 44 temporary shelters in 22 states. Some people moved to those shelters while others did not. Very unfortunate. And I think at this point, I quite agree that there should be enforcement going forward. We mentioned 12,000 metric tons that was given to us by Ministry of Agric, but that is in addition to other interventions. It's not just the 12,000 metric tons. If you look at it, I didn't mention rice and other condiments, which we have provided, and other food items, and even non-food items. So it's not just the 12,000 metric tons that was provided. How much we need, that will also be after the assessment. I cannot really say how much federal government needs. Very soon. And the people, the real people that are affected, they are going to be the real people that will be provided this support, because we have on-the-spot assessment. We are working with the local authorities, with the affected communities, to gather this data of the affected persons. So I want to believe, I'm optimistic that the targeted beneficiaries will be the ones that will be given these interventions. And the silverbird, yes, enforcement is very key, and I think going forward that is what should be done, so that it shouldn't be a matter of choice for one to be evacuated. It shouldn't be really, because we are talking about human lives here. That will have to be done. Yes, Tribune We have, as I mentioned, we have evacuated those that agreed to be evacuated. Some people feel these are their ancestral places, and so they do not want to leave, or they will not leave, and then they face the consequences. But we hope that next time people will heed to these early warnings, and then will heed to the evacuation program. I think that is okay. The other one is by Daily Trust. Almost all of Bayelsa, but it will also interest you to know that Bayelsa is not even amongst the 10 most hit. I think Jigawa is number 1. And we have taken intervention to Bayelsa, and it's still ongoing. We are using the Nigerian Air Force to access the inaccessible areas. These are natural disasters. We just hope that and pray that we don't see that again. It is a global phenomenon, and then the government is up and doing in this regard. Thank you very much. We are in all the states. Sorry, myself? Well, no, I've not been to all the states. And you know, you mentioned this issue of the humanitarian minister not being humane. This is a national issue that we are facing, and I think with every sense of responsibility, I'm carrying out my duties to the best of my ability, to the best I can, in service to this country and in service to humanity. And I think by mere looking at me, you know I'm humane. I do not accept that.
Thank you, Gloria, please, let's. No, Gloria. No, Gloria, see the minister privately on her way out. See her private. Gloria, you are overruled. You are overruled. Please. Thank you. Please, can we have some quiet? My duty at this time is to thank our very humane minister for all the humanitarian interventions in the country. You know that it is almost virtually impossible for one person to traverse the entire country because of these humanitarian issues. But you also understand that as often as possible, you see her at these points where humanitarian interventions are needed. So it is not about her being in every spot, which is almost impossible. So I think that is something we may need to educate Nigerians about, old and young. Let me thank the minister for coming. You will see that this flood issue is something that is germane at this time. And she has come. She has given us information and perspectives on what government has done. Thank you, Honourable Minister. Let me also thank the DG NEMA, Alhaji Mustafa Habib Ahmed. Thank you for coming. I think the DG NEMA has some, yes, but it will be given out. Okay. The media will get the presentation, and you can also use facts and information from it. Then Dr. Abubakar Suleiman, Deputy Director, Disaster Management. Okay, thank you, Doctor. Okay. Oh, what's the website? The Minister is saying their website is also available for you to visit. You will write out the website now, and then you can visit it. Okay. Jamila Mamandara, essay on humanitarian affairs. Is she here? No? Oh, okay. Welcome. Alhaji Mustafa, okay, I've introduced him. Alhaji Al-Hazan Nuhu, Director Relief. Okay, welcome. If you need some relief, see him. Then Air Commodore Edward Adedokun, Director Search and Rescue. Welcome, Air Commodore. Hajia Fatima Kazim, Director Planning, Research and Forecasting. Okay, thank you. And then Alhaji Idris Muhammad, Special Advisor. Welcome. Okay, Mrs. Oso is our own. You're welcome. Good to see you. Thank you. I also want to thank all members of the Presidential Communication Team who have put this together. We thank Oge Modi, who unfortunately couldn't be here physically today, but she's monitoring online. Then we thank Uche Adibe. Thank you for the good work. Thank you. Malab Garba Sheu. Thank you. Loretta Onache. I've seen James there. I've seen Deji. Everyone involved in the making of this, we appreciate you. And last but not least, our friends and colleagues in the media, we thank you for coming to report this and report it faithfully. You have done it week after week. We are glad, and we thank you for your support. God bless.